said, KT, they're a given. They're going to get out of the group stage with already Gen G failing. If Afreeca cannot get out of this group, it will mean so much for the LCK region.
Well, gentlemen, we are into picks and bans. Let's see how these play out in the first game of the final day here for Group A. Aatrox immediately banned out by Afreeca, wanting to keep that one off the table as Flash Wolves respond, getting rid of that Alistar that we heard the Desk talk about.
And I want to see how deep Afreeca go into the top lane bans here. We've already said that Hanabi is one of those players you can pick on. I would love to see them get rid of the Scion as well and try and secure the Urgot pick to isolate that lane.
And so far, the Afreeca Freecs are actually sticking with the same bans that they went for the last time they went up against the Flash Wolves. Alistar, Aatrox, and Thresh what they were taking off the board, and with Flash Wolves having to ban the Alistar given that they are on the red side, this frees up another ban for the Afreeca Freecs, and maybe they just take away the Rakan, maybe they deny Sword Art more of those playmaking supports.
Well, it looks like it is going to be the Scion taken off the table there by Afreeca. 2 out of 3 bans targeted towards those solo lanes with that Thresh accompanying. The Urgot also banned out by Flash Wolves here.
And I wonder if this now becomes an Akali first pick, because we've already said that Akali in the 4-1 struggled against Urgot. Scion, I expect it to be a similar story. Aatrox, a big bully lane, has been something that Keen has reached for, is still a flex pick, although I don't expect Kuro to play it to the highest level. This is going to be a clash of style, however, Vedius, because we mentioned bottom lane of Flash Wolves versus top lane of Afreeca. They need to secure some priority down there.
Ooh, that's an interesting priority for the Afreeca Freecs. I was expecting something like the Xayah to then have the pressure with the bot lane, kind of deny that from Betty and Sword Art, because now you're kind of giving them that free lane to play around, but Afreeca, they want Spirit to be on one of his big comfort junglers. They want him to have that level 6 playmaking power, that strong early game skirmisher, and we'll see how effective he can be as he's returned to the roster.
And the Flash Wolves are going to respond by locking in the Shen against the Nocturne. Now, of course, Paranoia does annoy Shen with being able to find targets for that Stand United, but at the same time, if they can survive the initial darkness, Shen can come to the rescue.
Yeah, it certainly can, and I would love to see them couple this with a pushing bottom lane, because I think that it can remain a flex pick, and we saw how much Flash Wolves get punished by the G2 lineup in that 1-3-1. This gives them a global ability to be able to resist that. With push bottom lane, which is not a Kai'Sa, they would be able to stand up in a laning phase, but that is a different direction.
Yeah, it looks like that Flash Wolves are saying, you know what, we're fine if you want to go for the Xayah Rakan, that's kind of what we're expecting you to go for. Things like the Leona are still up and ready to kind of deny that playstyle. So Afreeca have to make the choice now. Do they look to try and lock in early bot lane?
Tom Bench, come on, baby.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very safe, very standard bot lane. I think it'll do absolutely fine into the vast majority of the matchups that have been left up and available, but you are still giving Sword Art a playmaking support in the Rakan.
And whilst I agree with that, Vedius, it also once again sets the stage for the perfect 1-3-1 comp. Global on your jungle, global on your support, defense plus wave clear in spades if they go with the Varus here. I think Afreeca can open up the map in a similar way that G2 did, but nope, they go for the split push instead.
Not going for it. They lock in the Akali on the side of the Afreeca Freecs. Now remember, we did see them play this champion during the first round robin. Keen was on it, went 1-4-1, did not have a spectacular showing. And for this team that normally does so much through that top laner, if they give him that champion again, we're going to need to see a much different performance.
We certainly are. And the question is, where will this Akali go? It can be flexed to top and mids. I do like the Tahm Kench. You know, you already talked about it, Spawn. The 1-3-1 is extremely strong right now for the side of the Afreeca Freecs. The Camille has been banned away. Flash was showing that respect, given that Wonder has already had a phenomenal performance. You can see how good it is in terms of the split push power. But with this Lissandra, you can run teleport. You can put her in the top and mid lane as well. And this Shen, the question mark still surrounds whether it will be in that support position or if they want to send it up towards the top lane.
And I would like to see Maple keep the Lissandra, because we need Sword Art or Maple, I feel like, on an initiating champion. Something that can take priority. Lissandra, one of the few mid laners that is able to generate this. I also like the fact that the Afreeca is staying to the game plan, continue to attack Hanabi, get rid of lanes that can have influence on the map, isolate this guy and try and take him out.
It is solo lane focus with the bans here this second round as the Gangplank, the Swain, the Rise all banned away. One more left to go from the side of Afreeca before we get into that second half of the picks. We'll see what they want to do with this one here. 15 seconds left to choose.
Couple of options still available for Afreeca. Remember that jungle hasn't really been a big priority for the Flash Wolves so far in this game. Gragas is still up. Skarner is actually what they're choosing to take away, and given how popular Gragas has been, you have to wonder if they want to go for it, because in terms of the 1-3-1, you want to have something that can match this, the Nocturne if you have to go off into a side lane and try and force those 2 versus 2 plays. So the direction that Flash Wolves is looking in right now, I feel would much better answer the draft that Afreeca is going for.
They will lock in the Xin Zhao there for the side of the Flash Wolves. Going to be able to make some big plays early on with that one from Muujin, they hope. We'll see how the Afreeca Freecs want to respond to that one. The Galio, they're thinking about that. We have seen that played by Maple. The Flash Wolves actually opting into having a lot of tankiness on their mid lane picks throughout the tournament so far. But it looks like Afreeca is going to take a page out of that book and lock the Galio in themselves.
Yeah, and the S-tier 80 carry that I mentioned already, Varus, still available. I like the denial of the Galio away from Maple as well, because you can already see bottom lane dive is going to be available. Shen as well as the Xin Zhao. Now, all of a sudden, you don't allow that Galio to join the fight without roaming down. No Scion available as well in that situation means that they have so many options of being able to repel that bottom lane focus.
And the question is now, what do they put Hanabi on? Because he will be going up against the Akali on the top side of the map. They're kind of hovering around a tank for the time being. This does confirm that the Shen will likely be in the support position. And they do want that front line. It's something that Flash Wolves tend to rely on, having Hanabi on a tank, something that can survive the laning phase. And I think that with his sustain, with his ability to silence the Akali, there are options for Flash Wolves to actually play around the top side of the map in the early game.
Not only that, Cho'Gath is one of the best champions as far as tanks go at forcing the top laner back, because all of a sudden, if you just bite them, and he does so much true damage as the game progresses, they're down to, half health at a minimum as a squishy assassin top lane. Can kind of make the guessing game of, is a Shen going to join into this fight? Are we going to be able to win the 2v1? A little bit more dangerous for Keen. So I think that this is a more versatile comp for the Flash Wolves, but I still think what Afreeca has put together does replicate the draft that G2 had so much success on.
But like you said, the threat of that bite, when you have 2 different diving champions in the form of the Akali and the Nocturne that want to get onto that back line and find that dive, if you miss-execute even a little bit, Cho'Gath is there for the immediate punish, especially just with the lockdown from the silence to follow it up as well.
Yeah, but I would be surprised if this turns into a dive. I'm much more expecting Galio to stick to a side lane, has the ult on the weak side to be able to help out the group. Then Akali can deep split push, look to get that rolling. Both Nocturne and Tahm Kench, if they do collapse, will be there first. This is something that G2 showed to brilliance that they were able to execute upon. Let's see if Afreeca has the same discipline.
My biggest question mark is how well the Akali and a side lane will do against Lissandra. I feel like that at a certain point in the laning phase, just the amount of utility, mobility, and honestly sustain that she can provide with her ultimate can make her a difficult side lane threat, which to me feels that where will Afreeca invest their early game? Will they try and just snowball Keen, get him far enough ahead that he doesn't have to worry about the Lissandra? Or will they actually look to try and shut the Lissandra down? Galio is no weak point in the early game, especially with the amount of utility he provides, combined with the damage from a Nocturne.
We're loading onto Summoner's Rift now for the first game of the day. Afreeca Freecs 1-2 after the first round robin. The Flash Wolves 2-1. Tied for first in the group, but let's be honest, when everybody's at either 1 or 2 wins, the games could go any way today. Every single game is going to matter.
And putting 2 games between yourself and the Korean lineup for the Flash Wolves would be a statement. At the same time, the analyst desk pointed it out. If you drop this game, your week 1 performance didn't mean anything. Both teams would be feeling the heat after how bonkers yesterday's group went.
Yes, they certainly would be. I'm excited for this game. Flash Wolves, they definitely have a strong ability to 5v5. It's something that they've relied on during the first half of the groups. Both the Kai'Sa, the Lissandra, they provide a lot of teamfight utility and damage. You have the Engage with the Shen and Xin Zhao combo. You have enough follow-up with the Cho'Gath, and they have a huge amount of Baron threat as well. Now, the problem that Flash Wolves had the last time they went up against the split push composition was they really didn't force a lot around the map. There were a couple of opportunities where maybe they could have just looked to pressure around the mid lane, around that Baron objective, but naturally G2 made it very difficult for them, especially with the early game lead that they were able to build up for themselves. So the first step for the Flash Wolves is not allowing Afreeca Freecs to find the same early game lead that G2 had the last time they met.
And Flash Wolves has been struggling throughout this tournament so far in the early game. You can see on your screen right now, CSD and gold difference at 15 minutes for Hanabi, Maple, and Betty. Everybody is in the negative. The early game, the laning stats for this team, not quite where they would like them to be.
Yeah, it certainly isn't. And yet, if they can generate a pressure advantage with this Xin Zhao, a much more powerful early game jungler, specifically around this bottom lane, if they're able to get 1 or 2 kills, set the Varus Tahm Kench behind, there is still ways for them to generate leads. So I agree with you, Vedius. If they can look to attack a portion of the map, open it up nice and early, they have a very nice comp once it gets rolling.
They certainly do. And for the time being, what we notice is the Nocturne going very much towards the entire bot side clear, wants to work towards that level 6 as fast as possible, but ping's already coming down from Mujin.
Mujin moving into the enemy jungle here towards that Raptor camp, seeing if he can find something to steal away or try to flex on Spirit a little bit there. Doesn't look like a whole lot is going to come out of that.
Once again, we're also seeing the tank Lissandra option. It's something that we've been seeing a lot more recently. The damage reliance is going to be coming from Mujin along with Betty as well on the Kai'Sa. And I quite like it. I quite like what we're seeing from these kind of Lissandras. The fact that you can survive for so long in these fights later on, I think is very powerful. And right now, Maple, he actually has the push, which is allowing Mujin to invade in the enemy jungle and slow down the jungle clear from Spirit.
Spirit had managed to drag the Wolf around the corner of the wall, so Mujin didn't see the Nocturne there, clearing out the Wolf at the very end. Him smiting it and finishing that camp immediately means Mujin goes over to blue, uses his spell, starts the camp up, but then has to retreat. He doesn't have anything left in the tank to immediately deal with that fight against Spirit, and now we've got ourselves a standoff as both mid laners are also ready to rotate over to this fight.
The important thing to look at is the top lane, though. Hanabi is the one that joins the team first. Cho'Gath at these early levels will offer a lot more value than the Akali will, which is why Flash Wars have priority over the blue, but all 3 members from Afreeca Freecs grouping up around it.
Additionally, because the creep waves are on the side of the lane of the Afreeca Freecs, that means they're pushing into the Flash Wolves. That means that every second that the Akali, that the Galio spends here, they're actually losing out on experience as it dies to the other minion waves. So Spirit, yes, he defends his jungle camps, but it does cost experience and gold to the Afreeca Freecs lineup.
Mujin is still trying to invade here. Spirit's going to find the Fear Tether, takes a little bit of damage from the Wind Becomes Lightning, looking to chase further after this one. Mujin trying to get himself away. They're looking to collapse, flash away from Mujin to stay alive. Damage coming in there from Maple. Hanabi makes his way into the fight now as well. Silence goes down, Kuro below half HP. Everybody walks away.
So a couple of flashes were traded there, jungle for mid. And honestly, Mujin was just a little over-eager there. It was a good move from Kuro to be able to join the rest of his team first, but at the end of the day, he's the one that has to suffer for it. You can see the CS discrepancy starting to develop now in the middle lane as Kuro falls further and further behind, but he's already looking to trade against Maple as he returns to lane.
Yeah, but not a bad trade there, because you can see that Maple is just going to probably go back, replicate the teleport into the mid lane. His shop is going to be at 31 gold, so he'll be able to get a pair of boots probably on top of that Dark Sealed, maybe even an Amp Tome or something along those lines. So I think that right now, Flash Wolves would be happy with how their early game went. Remember, when you're playing against a Nocturne, it is as much slowing down that level 6 delaying the ultimate as it is picking up early game kills.
Right, we're not going to pretend like Xin Zhao's ultimate isn't an important team fight ability, but when you compare the impact it has on his ganks compared to what the Paranoia does for a Nocturne, it's night and day for lack of running a little bit too close to a pun.
Good
there.
one, Flower.
Yeah, I really wasn't intending on doing that, but by the time I was invested in the sentence, I already didn't have any other options. As Mujin, I'm going to find the option onto Kuro. It's a little bit of damage, but Kuro gets himself away pretty nicely there with the taunt. And it looks like he'll just walk back to lane pretty easy here. Mujin always looking for any sort of an opportunity to just mess with these guys.
That was good awareness from Mujin, though, because remember that he doesn't have Flash. And while Kuro doesn't either, the fact that Kuro was level 5 and Mujin was only level 3 means that with Spirit and Kuro and the taunt available from Kuro as well, Afreeca could have actually turned that into a kill in their favor. The early damage from the Nocturne combined with the CC from the Galio would have been more than enough to actually shut him down. So a lot of respect being shown from the Flash Wolves, recognizing what fights they can and can't take.
Yeah, and just some old school, good old battle warding coming out of Mujin right now, tracking the jungle, isolating these pushing waves. The only area of the map for the Flash Wolves that is actually suffering is this bottom lane, and even then they are keeping up in CS, making sure that this wave doesn't hit the turret. So whilst they're not attacking the bottom lane, they are securing farm for Betty. And as this game progresses, you know, Kai'Sa is one of the scarier late game carries in her ability to be able to shred through tanks and reposition around team fights, and definitely the area to watch.
And talking about farm, top lane, even. Jungle, even. Bottom, even. Mid lane, quite an advantage being built up for Maple over Kuro. Maple, this player that we've seen Like I said, he has only played Sion and Galio so far here at Main Stage Worlds 2018, and that's not exactly what you would always expect from him historically as a player.
Yeah, it's certainly against the trend. People will remember how good this guy was at LeBlanc, his ability to light up the international stage on the Assassins, however, is showing his versatility and once again, a little bit more of a control pick.
I mean, you think back to MSI, many considered him to be the best performing mid laner during the group stages. He was phenomenal alongside Betty, and that's what made Flash Wolves so scary and how they were able to qualify for the semifinals. Unfortunately, they didn't have a huge impact. They ended up going 3-1 against Kingzone, but again, overall, this year has been fantastic for Flash Wolves. Even though they've been dominant in the LMS, their summer split was the most dominant they've ever been. And now coming into group stages, at the start, they look like the heavy favorites.
And that's quite a statement to make when you consider you're talking about a team that has already won 6 consecutive splits in their region. To say, yeah, they're more dominant than ever before is quite something to put as an accomplishment.
And alongside that, it was at the loss of Kasa in the jungle to the mainstay of this Flash Wolves roster with the arrival of Mujin, the kind of player that many didn't expect to have a high performance has really contributed a lot to the team. And now with Flash Wolves at this 2-1 record, this would be a very important win for them to help moving out of the group. But the same can be said for Afreeca.
Speaking of Afreeca, Spirit level 6 now. Although he was slowed down a little bit earlier, he does have the Paranoia online. Mujin still only level 5 for the side of the Flash Wolves. We'll see if the Afreeca Freecs can make any sort of a play happen with this. We talk about it a lot with Nocturne, but once you have the ultimate up, every single time that thing's off cooldown, you want to be looking for a chance to pull the trigger.
And the pressure that they can now generate, because not only do they have the Nocturne ult, they also have themselves a Galio ult. Tucson has also just hit level 6, so all of the global abilities online. Interested to see where they choose to attack. Is it the mid lane? Is it maybe trying to give Keen some relief? Because right now it looks like he's under threat of dive.
2 members roaming up from Flash Wolves to set up something onto Keen here, but he's very aware of what's going on. Okay.
Mabel's got to get back the lane faster, man. He's got to get there.
I love plastic cones. That's just, it's the silliest. All right, Flash Wolves not going to go through with that dive, but Tucson's deciding, all right, it's time to make a move happen here into the bottom lane. Betty's going to be the target as the Paranoia goes through. Damage coming down. Tries to flash himself away, but the Ignite is going to be on him. Stand United keeps Betty alive, but they'll still find a different kill instead. It's first blood over to Kuro.
And that was a really nice setup from the Flash Wolves. They're able to cut off the retreat, but you can see the fight may continue. Maple as well as Mujin heading down into this bottom lane. Looks like it is just going to be the 1 kill for nothing.
It would have been a 2 versus 4 that the Flash Wolves reinforcements are walking into. Good play there coming out from Afreeca. Let's take another look.
And we can see here that good vision setup has been placed by Afreeca. They're ready to make this dive happen. There's a huge minion wave. And initially, the Tahm Kench just goes behind to buy more time for the Galio to get towards the bot side of the map. Spirit goes in, he's able to flash to guarantee the kill, but unfortunately, the ulti just comes in from Sword Art to keep Betty alive so that last tick of the Ignite doesn't secure the kill. Galio is there to just help out, but ultimately, Afreeca find that first kill. They get the snowball rolling, and this bot lane tower will now heavily go in the favor of Afreeca.
And a few things to watch as to why that dive was so successful. Spirit Refuge used for Sword Art before there was any threat of the dive taking place meant that they couldn't stay under the turret for the extra additional seconds to make it heat up. This is an area of the map we expect Flash Wolves to get ahead in, and they want to continue this trend. They're bringing multiple members down here to try and pressure.
4 Wolves in the bottom lane, but it doesn't look like they're going to stick around to try to make anything happen there immediately. Sword Art moves into the enemy jungle, clears out some vision there, just trying to maintain some control over this area, dropping down one of those control wards there, just to the side of the brush where he cleared the last one out.
But at the same time, whilst we have to compliment Afreeca for being able to set up that first kill, you also have to say that Keen hasn't been successful as of yet on the Akali top lane. And it's just the neutral lane right now that we're seeing. They haven't been able to generate any pressure off it, and still interested to see if it beats the Cho'Gath in the one-on-one.
I think, though, that as the game progresses, Akali will have much more threat in terms of the side lane. You definitely compare it to things like a Camille, who we've seen a lot of. Yeah, she usually outscales everyone in the side lane, but in terms of your ability to build magic resistance, the amount of health you can stack up as a tank, I'm always interested to see how well Akali often stacks up, because very often we rarely get to see her get to that point in the game, get to see her be this massive split-pushing threat, unless she's got a couple of kills under her belt.
Well, the Rift Herald looks like it's going to go the way of Afreeca. No contest on that one. Spirit secures it, grabs a couple of honey fruits. Picks up the eye and gets himself out of town. So another good early game grab there for this team that did manage to find themselves first blood a couple minutes ago. Did lose out on the first Drake the Flash Wolves picked up for themselves. That was a Cloud, but now that they've got Rift Herald, that's just more playmaking opportunities to work around.
Absolutely is, and at the same time, they've also just mitigated the risk of the downtime that can be available when you've used your global ultimates. You can see that Kurosa's the last that is about to become up and available, so they just trade halves of the map while they're waiting for those big cooldowns to become back up and see whether they once again walk towards this bottom lane, continue to threaten Betty and Sword Art because that turret is under siege and there is now a 30 CS lead.
And focusing on Betty and Sword Art just seems like something that can put such a hamper on what the Flash Wolves want to do. This is a team that works so much through Betty specifically. This is the guy that does so much of the carrying work for them. And if he falls behind this much, if you've got to deal with this big Varus in the mid game, it's going to be hard for Flash Wolves.
Well, Flash Wolves, they're making their way towards the bot side of the map. The Shen ulti is available. Here comes Mujin.
Mujin will lead the charge on this one, looking to go in. On to Tucson immediately. Stand United comes in. Nice. Use the Xinjiao ulti there, looking to knock the enemy AD carry back. Tucson getting himself away. Kramer's going to be doing the same as reinforcements have arrived. Kuro on the front line now, looking to tank things up and buy some time. Spirit gets himself off the side, and everyone disengages.
No one actually ends up going down there because Maple chooses to ult himself rather than a target. Flash Wolves clearly saying we're not going to commit to this fight. With the arrival of the Galio and the TP of the Akali, we can't commit. It's not worth it. Instead, we'll just disengage and get a couple summoner spells.
But at the same time, they use the minimum on the side of the Afreeca Freecs as well. No ultimate going to be used from Nocturne. They also repositioned around the map earlier, so they actually might get this first turret in response. I think Afreeca playing a much better, measured, slow game than what we saw of them the first time they took to the world stage.
And now it's 3-man middle plus Shelly. That means turret number 1 goes the way of Afreeca, up to a 1,500 gold lead thanks to that one and the bonus gold it offers. We said this team needed to get themselves off to a lead. We said they needed to be in a good spot if they wanted to do what G2 did to Flash Wolves previously. Gentlemen, it looks like they're doing pretty well so far.
And mid lane turret gives you so much control over the map, so much so that Betty now has to be rotated into that mid lane with Sword Art to contest the wave, because if not, you're going to force Mujin out of his turret. You can look for the turret dives on the side waves because you're going to be in behind Hanabi, in behind Maple. So if they cannot contest, if they cannot push out, Afreeca is in such a good position.
Now we'll see what they decide to do with that first turret having been claimed. We'll see how the lane assignments end up being played out for them to continue controlling the game like this. Remember, if we're comparing this to what G2 did to Flash Wolves a couple of days ago, G2 was able to consistently keep the ball in their court. They never let Flash Wolves play their game and get that team fight. They always made sure they were avoiding those situations, and that's what we want to see from the Afreeca Freecs if they want to beat Flash Wolves in this game and tie that score line up. Still no neutral objectives available to take for either side right now. Still 5 minutes before Baron spawns, a couple more before Drake will respawn. As Maple gets a little bit of damage there down onto Tucson, gets himself over the wall with the claw, and he'll try to defend this turret, but it is very low.
So there's a rotation bot from the bot lane of Flash Wolves, but I don't know if they're going to be able to defend this tower as Kuro makes his way there.
Tucson with the Ghost wanting to catch up, see if maybe he can slow somebody down, but not a whole lot happening from it there. Piercing arrow onto Betty, and they're done.
And you saw they couldn't contest. All of a sudden, that pink ward, that control ward, in behind the blue buff on the bottom side for Flash Wolves, as well as the just normal wards in the jungle, means that this lineup had full vision of the Flash Wolves as they were rotating, take the calculated play, come out with the objective.
And this is a very different Afreeca. They're being very proactive in the early game. They're playing around the lanes that are strong for them, and now all they need to do is rotate the Varus and the Tahm Kench up towards the top side of the map. Get Keen in this long lane where the Cho'Gath won't have the safety of a tower, and you have the ability to flank with a Tahm Kench ultimate, use the Galio ulti, have the Nocturne come through the lane, start getting Keen rolling in this side lane so that you can better threaten the 1-4, set up for the 1-3-1, and utilize the globals that you have at your disposal.
And as you would expect from a team that is wanting to win through macro, win through objectives, through lane assignments, not team fights, it's a one-kill game, 16 minutes in. It's not excessively bloody. That's exactly what the Afreeca Freecs are looking to make happen with this one. Farm still even in the top lane and the jungle, relatively even in mid lane, while that CS lead continues to grow, albeit just a little bit in the bottom side there. You can see on the side of your screen, Kramer averages 7 CS up at 15. This game, he was at plus 20.
And you can see right now that they once again walk into the top side jungle, the last turret remaining on the outer ring. They get down their vision. They're fighting for every inch of control. Maple without teleport going to have to answer that bottom wave, and this is not the pace at what the Flash Wolves wanted to play. Against Fong Fu Buffalo, they were so accelerated at this stage, now once again getting choked out.
This is just such clean map play from Afreeca Freecs. Note how the Galio pushed out bot, rotated up to mid after Kramer and Tristan had pushed up mid and rotated up to top. This gave them full vision control over the top side of Flash Wolves jungle, along with a very cheeky control ward just behind the Wolves on the bottom side. So Afreeca have full information of where the Flash Wolves are, and this is how you mitigate their playmaking potential. When we saw them play up against, when it was G2 versus Flash Wolves and they were dealing with this split push, when they were being spread across the map, it was this kind of vision control and this amount of information that made it difficult for the Flash Wolves to find these kind of fights.
And as they keep attacking Sword Art, they're dragging him around the map. Sword Art, so famous for some of his flanks that he's able to pull, you know, sitting in the enemy red buff, in their blue buff, looking for the deep engages on something like a Shen would be even more potent because he does have the global if you get surprised. We've seen none of it. We've seen him on the back foot time and time again, being reactive to Afreeca, and now Flash Wolves find themselves in a 3,000 gold deficit.
Speaking of the word reactive, the format changed this year to the World's Group Stage from going from 2 weeks to one long stretch of 8 days with no big break in between. People had questions about, well, this is going to force a lot of quicker reactions from teams. You're not going to have that time in between week 1 and week 2 to react to things, to change up the plan, to decide how you want to differ in your approach to the opponents in your group in that second week. And what I'm seeing right now, boys, is the fact that the Afreeca Freecs have adapted very well to what seemed to be Flash Wolves' greatest strength. And they're seemingly have found the weakness in that armor.
Yeah, they certainly have, and I think that they've really broken down what G2 were able to do and then look to just replicate it, and I admire that because I think that Cloud9 yesterday did a similar thing with Vitality's early game, and in the end, even RNG joined in on the fun, playing a lot of Lane Kingdom style, so I think that that's what it's going to come down to, the group meta that you're able to replicate and implement successfully.
And we've heard a lot about how in the LCK, the infrastructure is what makes these teams so scary because you have a lot of support staff, there's a lot of preparation that goes into these games, and in the first round robin of this group, many were like, well, we haven't seen that preparation, letting through the Heimerdinger, not respecting the Flash Wolves, and this time around, it feels like that they put their heads down, they came up with a draft that not only plays to their strengths, but also allows the players to execute upon what they're good at as they set up a dive in mid.
Mid lane, it's going to be stopwatch pop there by Hanabi. Won't have that one available any longer into the future. A lot of damage coming out from Kramer to force that out.
But look at the positioning of the map. Look at the inside track they're able to generate. And once again, rotating the long way around. The Flash Wolves getting denied jungle camps now, starting to lose out on the economy. Keen also playing a good weak side, not overextending, not making himself a target without the waves pushed up. This is very much great execution on the 1-3-1.
Now, let me pose you guys this question, because earlier on you said Afreeca Freecs, this composition, it wants to split up, it wants to 1-3-1, pull Flash Wolves apart, make it so they can't get their team fight. We're seeing that happen. If you're the Flash Wolves, what is the response to this to make sure this game doesn't play out like the match against G2?
So it's really difficult, and the reason why is because of this Tahm Kench. If Flash Wolves try to force a play on one of the side lanes, the Tahm Kench or the Nocturne is going to show up immediately. There's also the risk of a Galio ulti showing up too, and you've got to respect the fact that there's 2 teleports. So unfortunately for the Flash Wolves, they need to try and find a lead earlier into the game. They needed to utilize this Xin Zhao. And kind of what they're hoping for now is to find a pick while the Afreeca Freecs are moving through the enemy jungle, because what we've seen is Flash Wolves push and then they move. They push and move. Kind of the standard expectation when you're getting that deep vision. And the hope now for Flash Wolves is that Afreeca make that slight misstep. They don't have the proper setup. They face check a brush, and then with this great utility and damage that they have with things like the Lissandra, with the gap closing of the Shen and the Xin Zhao, maybe Flash Wolves can find a pick. But right now, it's a very similar situation to what they found themselves in G2.
Because all you're trying to do is draw out the game, elongate it a little bit. Then once you have the ability to set up around objectives, you've already mentioned the secure of the Cho'Gath. if it's a tier 2 as opposed to a base turret being pressured, you can look to force that fight. Of course, if they fall any further behind, you're looking at things like the Hail Mary double teleport play onto the 3-man group and try and blow them up before any response play gets there. But I don't think that is the current state of the game.
But if you look at the map right now, you can see that Galio actually pretty overextended when Akali wasn't in a position to do so, and the mid lane was being cleared out. And those are the kind of gambles you could take, you know, where you see, okay, one lane is slightly overextended, let's just commit. Lissandra throws the ultimate out, we can have the TP in from behind from the Cho'Gath, and you kind of have to look for those very small windows to try and punish a side lane to just relieve this pressure. Because if you don't, the gold lead is going to continue to get bigger and bigger. Afreeca Freecs are going to get more and more control over the map, and eventually that Nocturne is going to show up in a lane, they're going to find a kill, and then Flash Wolves are going to lose more control over the map.
Also worth checking in on the item spikes because Afreeca is starting to hit them. Its Guardian Angel completed a second major item there for Spirit. He can dive in, not worry about the consequences. Similarly, Kuro, along with that Rod of Ages that he has, also has Zhonya's Hourglass now fully complete. Means he has the ability to drop that stasis in these big fights, drop the aggro there, and with Rage Blade along with Blade of the Ruined King done for Kramer, that means a lot of on-hit damage coming out of this Varus. Sword Art's going to be taking a lot of damage there from the Chains of Corruption, locking him down. Does get to the safety of his allies in time, but Afreeca still chasing further after him. Piercing Arrow nearly takes him out, but close is all it'll be.
But you can see what the play is. That's not an over-aggression. No Galio, Nocturne ult looking for the team fight. Instead, they force him back. They push out the waves. They're looking to deny CS. They're looking to control areas of the map and try and pressure Flash Wolves into making a mistake.
And there was some quick Akali damage from Keen onto Maple. Got the 5-point strike into the auto attack, plus the Gunblade active. Took him down to about half HP. He'll heal up with the potions, but that still stings.
And again, look at Kuro. He's pushed in bot lane. It's slowly pushing towards the tower of the Flash Wolves. And he's grouped up mid, but he's staying mid because he knows he has his ulti to join the fight should one kick off. And he's always in a vicinity to help whenever the Flash Wolves try to force a play. The goal difference is now 4,000. Afreeca haven't had to fight once because, again, it all comes off how well they played the early game, how they're utilizing the map pressure, and how smart they're being with their vision placement.
Sometimes the best way to play the game is the way that doesn't involve fighting your opponents at all. Instead, just play a little ring around the rosy, lead them back and forth, and when they can't catch up, it means you're going to constantly come out ahead. Afreeca Freecs enjoying the lead that they've got. Flash Wolves, the only objective they've secured for themselves throughout this entire game is a single Cloud Drake that was responded to in kind by Afreeca 6 minutes thereafter. So that is going to be one element of this game that is even, as Afreeca will continue controlling the area around the Baron Pit. And as we get later into the game, that's more and more of a concern for the Flash Wolves.
And I'm so impressed by how often the Flash Wolves, Afreeca, are able to stay on the map in positions of power. Normally, you give a team a window with the reset, but they're using things like the Spellbook Teleport to just make sure they're rotating members. This might actually be potential scuffle.
Lissandra's pretty slippery. Does use the claw to get herself away from that one. Keen dropping the shroud there, and Afreeca are just constantly set up in this enemy jungle. So many control boards, so much vision. They're just not afraid.
And look at the bottom wave. It's now stacked up. It's huge. No one has been able to answer it for a protracted amount of time. So now that is just farm that Kuro can go collect. They're also looking at taking down this mid lane turret. Afreeca just slowly but surely trying to starve the Flash Wolves of any form of gold.
And it's really difficult for the Flash Wolves, right? Because, you know, the last time we saw them play up against G2, you could argue that there were many windows where they could look to try and force a play. There were opportunities for them to just try and force something. But when the map is in this kind of a state and when you're going up against a Nocturne, a Galio, the Tahm Kench, it's not as simple as saying, let's just attack one of the Silence, just run it down mid, because Afreeca, they have a 4K gold lead, and even trying to force a fight in this kind of a situation, when all these globals can then just collapse upon you, is the risk that you have to be careful of. So Flash Wolves, again, they're just waiting for this small opportunity to try and punish Afreeca, which just isn't being made available.
But this is also smart from the Flash Wolves. They're not panicking. They see that Dragon's being taken. They get the notification. Keen backs away because, you know, he's a smart player and that's what you're supposed to do. But they use that time to regain control of their jungle. They take a couple of camps and they're just still looking to scale. They still have a team fight comp that if they do get in a situation where they can blow up a carry, can accelerate the pace of this game. And the longer it goes, the further that Betty is able to get items, the more relevant Maple is going to be as that disruptive threat on the Lissandra. So I still don't think this game is over. Flash Wolves can still look for that one team fight.
I mean, Flash Wolves does have 2 items on the mid laner. Proto Belt and Zhonya's both very big actives there for Maple. If you look at Betty, he's almost there with the Rage Blade. Had to pay the QSS tax to get away from some of the CC on the side of the Afreeca Freecs. So not quite at that 2-item power spike just yet. And Gargoyle's Stoneplate done in the Cho'Gath means the Chomp becomes a big Chomp whenever he goes in and finds somebody that might go a little bit too deep in a fight. As Keen finds his way onto Betty. Just a little bit of damage, though. Nothing too over extreme. Lane tier 2. One more shot will do it. Does get taken down. Tucson doing what Tahm Kench does best. Chains of Corruption. Going to go a little bit wide there onto Maple, but do find their way onto Hanabi. No reason to go for a fight. Afreeca got what they came for.
And I like the fact that Maple is at least willing to threaten, is at least willing to say, don't step any further. You know, we are able to still pressure you on our areas of the map. But you can see how deep the side lanes are right now. The full course press still being maintained and no one being caught out of position. If the gold lead continues to grow, this is going to be 3 versus 4, but instead they might look to fight.
Paranoia comes out, seeing if maybe they can find somebody. Not today. Again, that Lissandra, so easy to get herself out of trouble, utilizing the claw to get over walls, get herself to safety. Goes it out now, jumps after it, takes it to the last possible second. Gets a little bit of damage there with the Proto Belt, but not much more. Afreeca still hanging around here in the mid lane. Flash Wolves looking to collapse now onto Keen. Heroic entrance going to come in to keep him alive. And the entrance is heroic indeed, but not enough. Maple's able to find the kill onto Keen now, as Flash Wolves will look to go even further. They got to be careful though. Kramer's able to put down so much firepower. Tahm Kench ultimate does come out, tries to gobble up that mid laner, keeping him safe, spitting him back over the wall. As now Hanabi's walking in front of everyone. He's a pretty big Cho'Gath, but he's still going to take a lot of damage from these guys. Spirit continuing to walk forward. Kramer providing the auto attacks there as well. TP coming in from the Flash Wolves, looking to see if maybe they can make this go even further yet. But as long as Kramer is alive, you've got to be so respectful of that damage.
And this was the pick that Flash Wolves were looking for. Keen. He was in a part of the map that was not in full vision control of the Afreeca Freecs. Flash Wolves saw an opportunity, and the flash in from Maple to lock him down forced Afreeca into a fight, but it was effectively Kuro and Keen versus the entire Flash Wolves roster.
Yeah, it certainly was. And you can see they're split up, even with the global ultimates, not able to come to the assistance of their top laner. And sure, the Obscura is a big tool, and this looks like a good start to the team fight. The fact that everyone else had to walk around, the fact that Spirit isn't diving in there because his ultimate is on cooldown, means that they have no tools to really be able to do that. Great use of the Kasave there from Tucson to pull Kuro over the wall with the Tahm Kench ultimate, but at the same time, they just slow play it. They slow the fight down. They still don't burn flashes or any important tools. One member goes down, but the lead remains the same.
And it's those moments that Flash Wolves need to try and punish. It is those opportunities that can buy them more time and then give them more opportunities to force these fights a little bit later into the game.
And you can see on your screen right now, this one is indeed one that's slow to catch fire. Only 2 kills, 29 minutes in, 1 for each side. They're both being so careful about the approach. Afreeca not willing to give away what they've worked so hard to build in terms of this lead by going too hard. Flash Wolves at the same time just saying, don't worry, we've got Kai'Sa, we scale, just wait for it, let them make a mistake.
But now that Kai'Sa is at 2 items, is starting to look for some of these team fights. They have vision control.
I saw an opportunity there for Flash Wolves because they didn't actually have a pushing wave up top or in bot, and there were just 3 in mid that could have been collapsed upon by a 5-man unit of Flash Wolves, but they didn't pull the trigger. They chose not to go for that engagement, and now it's Afreeca going for the pin.
Chains of Corruption down on a Sword Art, who does get himself away. Nocturne ulti used, they're diving in, looking to make it happen. Here comes the heroic entrance. Keen's gonna be going now into the Shroud, getting himself away, gonna be gobbled up by Tucson. This Flash Wolf still looking to make the fight potentially happen now. Mooj is gonna be taken very low, does go into the stasis, staying alive only for a moment. Kramer grabbing the kill onto him, as now the Cho'Gath likely gonna be killed here next. Maple goes stasis too, but it's already a double kill over the Afreeca Freecs AD carry. Ladies and gentlemen, there go the kills we're talking about. Afreeca pick up 3.
And finally, we see what happens if you force versus a 1-3-1 and you don't have control over the area where you're fighting. They funnel into a choke point, and Afreeca make them pay.
Huge team fight for Afreeca. I thought it was going to end in disaster, but they execute beautifully. They secure an inhibit. Flowers, they might be looking to end.
Here we go. Towards the Nexus are the Afreeca Freecs. Sword Art can't do anything about it. Kramer goes on a killing spree. 3 items on the Varus is enough for this team to push for the win. They're going to get themselves their second win of the group stage. They will tie themselves up with the Flash Wolves, and they will take that Nexus.
And such a controlled pace of the game instilled from Afreeca. They took what G2 did, they replicated it, and were able to once again starve this Flash Wolves lineup out. Flash Wolves again just couldn't find the play they were looking for.
Very clean League of Legends for the most part from Afreeca Freecs. The only mistake you could argue was Spirit using his ulti to try and find that pick, which meant that when Keen was often in the jungle and he gets collapsed upon, he ends up dying. But outside of that, their vision control was immaculate. Their lane assignments were fantastic. And everything just came together, and it just goes to show that if you never allow the Flash Wolves to team fight, then that is how you can make them crumble.
And that's something I'm now looking at Flash Wolves, who still have 2 more games to